Welcome to the Moxstars podcast. I am Evan Kunai, one of your resident Moxstars, and I'm here with Jordan Garcia.
Yo, what up?
And Christopher Ritter.
What's poppin', Pepperheads?
It is another day in the studio, and we are so excited to bring you a very special episode with two finalists from the Fall Brawl in Issaquah, Washington at Laughing Dragon MTG. But before we get into that, if you would like to support the show, you can do so by subscribing to us on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up, ring that bell for more notifications. You can find us on all major podcasting platforms. Give us a 5-star review. It goes a long way to helping new people find the show. And join our Discord server, where we're constantly popping off. And on the side from that, we also have a Patreon account, which you can sign up to be a supporter. And when you do, you'll get the Pepperhead role on the Discord server, where you'll gain access to 2 exclusive channels. The Dr. Pepper channel.
It's the best channel.
It's the best channel.
Best soda, best channel.
Nothing better.
Deep lore.
Honestly, just Dr. Pepper memes. I'm not downplaying that. Hopefully, it is the best channel on.
It is Dr. Pepper memes.
Yeah, there we go. And
I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you consider that the best channel.
This is the #1 podcast on the internet for Magic the Gathering and Dr. Pepper. You also gain access to the exclusive channel Shower Thoughts, where we take a little bit, or we take conversations from that channel and plug those into each and every single episode. Today we have our one of our patrons, Justin, who's going to be on the show today, doing an interview with us. So
I consider that like a shower thought
That's
extra.
an extended shower thought.
Exactly.
yeah, extended.
Wait till you hear them. It's a lot of shower thoughts.
Yeah. It's a sauna thought.
So we're actually just going to get right into it. We're going to jump right into these interviews. Just to preface it, we have Justin, who is a Pepperhead, who placed 3rd at the Fall Brawl playing Rocco.
Shout out.
And we have Atlas, who's been on the show before, who is a supporter of the show, a big fan, and we're a big fan of his. You can find, if you would like a deeper insight into Atlas's brain or his mind and how he works, you can also find his podcast called Mana on the Rocks. He won the entire tournament playing Kenrith, so we're very excited for these interviews.
Yeah, I don't know if we mentioned in the interview, I forget, but got to check out that Kenrith primer that Atlas wrote. It is an incredible primer. If you play that commander or you play against that commander, you're going to want to check it out. It's incredibly
100%.
well written.
Yeah, I don't know if you listened to last week's, but we had Tyler on, and then with Justin and Atlas here, we went along with them in the conversation with their deck lists up. It was very cool going through it. Like, these guys are very smart and make very interesting deck building choices. It was cool getting to pick their brains about it.
Yeah, you could sit and you could go through every single card choice, I think. And
oh, yeah.
The interviews could have lasted a lot longer.
You could literally do an episode per card.
Yeah, right.
Endless material. Like, listen to these guys talk. They will go off about why it's in the deck.
Atlas truly can go off about any card in that deck list. He's thought about every card.
100%. Yeah, it shows.
I saw that he finally announced that he convinced the Kenrith Discord server, like the dedicated Kenrith cEDH Discord server, that Cloud Shift is better than Ephemerate.
Yeah, everybody shifted over. Everybody cloud
agreed.
shifted.
Yep.
Bingo, bango.
You've been on it with these dad jokes.
I don't know. Anything that lets me fire off a finger gun at you.
And we have one more, technically 5 more exciting announcements for you guys here today.
Buckle up.
We are officially launching our tokens, which we're having sending them through production right now, and we'll have them in our hands soon, and we'll be able to update you guys more on that process as.
Oh yeah, we can post up all the art on social though.
Yeah, if you guys were at MagicCon in Vegas, you got a little preview
We've
of
been
it.
hyping them up.
Oh yeah,
but we're about to get these babies in foil, so get ready. They are schmexy.
I like that. All right, let's jump right in.
All right, bro. Well, let's get into it. Thank you so much for being here today.
Sure.
Love having you on the pod. Let's chat about this freaking tournament, dude.
Okay.
You crushed it. So sick to see you and Atlas fighting in the top pod. First, let's start off just kind of general vibe overall for you for the tournament.
So you brought Rocco.
You brought Rocco. Yeah,
Correct.
good shout. Your disgusting Rocco list. It's so good. Did you make any changes going in for the tournament?
I did. So I've been toying around with, and I know we talked about it, Pull from Eternity? Because I never want to fight over my win cons. Mm-hmm. I want to present it send it, and if it gets stuffed, just, okay, cool, it resolves, and move on. And then immediately present another win con. Blue players run out of resources faster than you'd think.
100%.
So it's just, I'm going to attempt to win on turn 2, 3 at the absolute latest. So instead of that, though, and relying on my food chain getting force of negged, it was add Underworld Breach to the line.
Yeah.
I'm going to have at least 3 fetches in the bin, probably a Grand Abolisher, and hell, a Squee, right? Who cares? It can exist wherever I want it to. Get that food chain or that birthing pod back into the list.
It sounds like you're talking like a value Underworld Breach right now.
100% is all it was.
Oh, man.
Love to see a value breach.
Moxstars, big fan of a value breach here.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm on Savine's Wreck, but that's just because it gets back food chain, right? And it gets back Squee, and it gets back Eternal Witness. So that's probably the big one that I haven't run. But the last time I topped a tournament, it wasn't in the list. And then the other one that I'm on is just literally the One Ring, because if
it's a good card.
Yeah, when that list gets stopped at like turn 5, I need a way to gas back up. And so if I just send out a One Ring turn 3 and draw cards, by the time I'm out of cards, I'm drawing 4, 5, 6 cards.
Gotta
so
say,
that was really the only 2 ads, and right now I don't really have any flex spots in the list.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, the One Ring is a great backup plan, I think, in any deck.
Correct. So just the sheer amount of card draw versus life loss compared to library, it's in another league by itself.
Yeah, the amount of One Rings and Orcish Bowmasters I saw at this tournament was actually insane.
So the other line, though, that really not giving a shit about Bowmasters was Goblin Sharpshooter.
Yes, dude. I love that you put that in the list. And when you played it against me, it was perfect at like the table texture that was happening right there. It was devastating.
Mm-hmm. And so it's send the Bowmasters, and I'll try and land that turn 1 also if I can, because then I don't have summoning sickness. I can start to control the dork sitting across from me. Like, that's what I did to Jake when we were at that top 4 pod. It was, listen, the moment you go bananas, I am going to start picking your shit off. And we know Sisse and Kenny aren't going to save you from that in the slightest.
Right. So it's like, stay in check, keep yourself in check, or I will.
Correct.
Yeah.
But the value with the Sharpshooter is less so the Sharpshooter itself as go play a Value Academy Rector, sack your Ranger Captain to stop any shenanigans, ping your Rector twice, dump Splinter Twin onto it, and go ham with it that way.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah. Completely uninteractable too. I love that.
Well, saying you can applaud Atlas on that one, go figure, speaking of top pods. And actually, that was part of our Mexican standoff in the Final Four.
Was the Sharpshooter?
With the Sharpshooter with a Rector in play.
God, I love that so much.
Mm-hmm.
How soon before the tournament did you add in that Sharpshooter?
No, the Sharpshooter's been in... Hell, the Sharpshooter's been in for months at this point.
Okay.
So when I first started playing Rocco, I was on like 3/4 gas and 1/4 stacks. And then big shout out to Sasha. She looked at me and was like, everybody's running stacks, Rocco. Can we run gas, Rocco? And I was like, I'm all about it, because you can't realistically run stacks in tournaments at 75-minute rounds.
100%.
So like, hey, let's gas it out. And then it was, I think we need to add Sharpshooter in as part of it. And I think we took out Aven Mind Sensor at that point as a 1-for-1.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been in the list since.
That's a fun swap. I actually like that. That's a nice little update.
Well, because I don't need to fight it. The opposition agent in the black decks is going to fight it, right? My job at the table is not to police when I'm going that fast.
Go for the win.
I might hold on to a deflecting swap, but that's about it.
I mean, you explained your philosophy earlier on, which is just you're going to present and present and present and like let them stop you from winning.
Yeah. I've played against you enough to like 100%. I just get that vibe from you without you even saying that. You just present wins all the time.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So Sasha pushed the deck as far as I was comfortable with. And then it was after I'd qualified for the Northwest Regionals, I sat down with Atlas and I was like, yo, this isn't fast enough for me. I think we need to take it to a consistent turn 2 and then allow me to hold up hands that will get me 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then 1 ring on turn 5. So we went, that's when he said, yo, you need to be on Splinter Twin then. And then we pivoted to Preston and fooled around with maybe we take Kiki out. But we took out Arena Rector and just, if we draw into Vivian, great. If not, the plan is to go nuts with, God, what are my win cons, man?
I don't know. You win all the time. What are your win cons?
So I have Preston Felidar as a win con. I have Kiki Felidar as a win con. I have the Birthing Pod Felidar line. I have Vivian Pod as a win line. I have Gandalf Mommy Cloudstone Curio as a win con line, because that allows me to flash out Cloudstone Curio and Squee at instant speed, which will then allow me to win on the stack as long as Food Chain's in play. I can White Mane Lion loop with Mommy to bounce my Rocco, my Wirewood Symbiote, and Dockside. But then I can also present it, with Sharpshooter and Splinter Twin. And if I really have to, I can Endurance Loop and shove all my creatures back into my list and then start tutoring them back out again. So I can do like 3 or 4 infinite mana and then win conditions. My favorite's probably the Preston one because I get to exile everybody's nonsense as well.
No, it seems really fun. Like, what I like about this is a lot of your combo lines are just like, these are the pieces that you have, and it gives you so many options that you can just like build on what you have.
And the point, I think, in any turbo list is you really gotta just lean all the way into it. And you can't really play irresponsibly. You can't present a win, it gets stuffed, present win 2, force the table to stop you, and then the next player just wins. That's, I think, taking the most skill to learn, but
I find myself doing very much the same thing as I play more turbo.
Of tiptoe into it, because, 1 win con gets stuffed. Cool, I'll do 2 the next turn, then 3 on the next turn kind of thing.
Yeah, and especially like if you are dedicated all in on turbo, you're walking a much thinner margin of how many resources you have and how much you have to pull back from. So like if you get stopped, it is significantly worse than a Timna Thrasios deck getting stopped and they can just keep going, or like Blue Farm getting stopped. Like your margin is so much thinner. So you have to be really careful on your attempts.
Because we had mentioned in the shower thoughts of what about ETBs and nonsense on a stick, right?
Solid plug.
But then they started doing shit like Elishnorn and Gandalf that double my ETBs.
Yes, dude.
Well, guess what? Endurance does stuff on ETB. Solitude does stuff on ETB. Lauren does stuff on ETB.
Bro, Twin Shot Sniper is an ETB that also kills your Rector.
It also kills. So if I have double ETB, I can layer it, kill the opposition agent, and still then kill my Rector.
Oh my god. Yeah, dude, it's just so tasty. Every time I look at this list, it's tasty. It's so good.
And so it's not just that it goes super fast, but it's at a point now, and maybe because I played it so much that I can see the lines in my sleep, but everything synergizes with 3 other cards in that list. So I do like your point of your resources and your margins are so slim, but it's at a point where I can almost snap keep a first 7.
Which you do all the time.
Be done with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say, did we talk about my opening 7 in pod 1?
No, you kept it, but you didn't show me.
I want to plug this one. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was Ragavan, Command Tower, Temple Garden, Food Chain Squee, Invasion of Ikoria, and Boromir.
Oh my God.
That gets me a turn 2 Food Chain. And then I can go nuts, right? Well, I top decked an Eladamri's Call and a Solitude, which allows me then to not only ace somebody's commander, which I was looking at a turn 2 Crom across the table from me, but on my LTB, I make 6 red mana to the Food Chain.
Yeah, that's pretty hot. I love that.
And my average hands in that tournament were like that, except for the final 4 pod where, and pod 2. But when I have to go to 5, yeah, it's kind of fucked.
So, so that's what I want to ask, actually. For a deck like this, where do you typically see yourself mulliganing to? And then also, how are you playing this deck differently, like, in turn order, 1 versus 4?
So I'm going to answer the second question first.
Go for it.
I don't care what turn order I'm in and who I'm playing against. I'm not playing blue. It's not my responsibility as the turbo player to police the table. My job is to become the arch enemy, and I become the problem.
So you're just totally you just it doesn't bother you at all. I love that.
Yeah, your mentality is to win and just keep trying to win.
All right. Yeah.
Correct. And I guess that can be that's not what we're supposed to hear, right? They say in cEDH, mulliganing and what turn order and what seed order and who are my opponents. But I'm a bad control player. So
yeah, you're breaking both those big rules right there.
Yeah.
The bad boy of cEDH over here.
That's Pepperhead mindset.
Dude, definitely Pepperhead mentality over here, for sure.
And then as far as what I'm looking for in my hand, I need a dork and 2 lands. And then everything else will come together from there. Realistically, the rest of the hand doesn't matter because I have enough weird-ass interactions like a Lauren that Boromir says my Force of Wills can't stop me.
Yeah, I love Boromir.
Actually came into play when I won that pod. It's all straight gas and value, right? Because Boromir also sacks, so I can't get stuck like on a Lavinia shenanigan.
Oh, Boromir is an incredible card. Like all around, every line of text on there is good.
Mm-hmm. It allows me to just say, can I do something on turn 1, turn 2? And realistically, that's what I'm looking for. 2 lands and a dork. And weirdly, I kind of hope for the Pilgrim more than any of the other dorks because I'm so not green heavy in the list.
Playing Avacyn's Pilgrim, getting the white pip. Yeah, you have so much white and a lot of double pip white in this list, like Linvala, Karmic Guide, Grand Abolisher, Gandalf. Tons of white. Ranger Captain.
Yeah, and it's Linvala's kind of the only real stacks heavy piece that I have in the list.
I don't know. You turn 1 oofed me, and that felt pretty stacksy.
Yeah, so that actually happened in the Final 4 pod too, where Jake sat down, slammed a turn 1, turn 2 null rod, and I said, okay, if it's going to be that kind of game, fuck it. And I slammed a turn 2 oof, like the very next
oh my god,
pass turn, great. Untap, upkeep, draw, collector oof. And then the turn after that, I put down a Linvala to shut off the other 3 players.
I hate this game already. That's awful.
And then the turn after that, I put down a mommy.
Let's go.
Yeah.
That's awful.
And I know Mother Machines is a stacks piece, but I don't see it that way in my list, right?
I mean, it's kind of a combo engine in your deck.
I mean, well, I don't know, Elish Norn, I mean, she's just another card that's like every line of text is good. It's a 4/7
Correct.
with vigilance. The first block of text is good, and the second block of text is good.
I mean, kind of looking through your deck right now, like to me, this is like a no bad cards Naya list. Like it is how I look at this. Like every single card provides so much value to your deck.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, it's taken a long time to get it to where it is. I don't honestly, the only fluff right now, if I had to change anything, would be Underworld Breach, and that would literally just be Pull from Eternity, right? Just to make sure that I can get my Exiled Food Chain or Birthing Pod back.
Right. Also pitchable to Solitude, which is nice.
Correct. Yeah.
Is there anything you see in the Doctor Who spoilers or in the Ixalan spoilers yet that might make it to the list?
So not for Rocco, but because I like Naya and I love stacks, and I would say that if I got 90-minute turns consistently, I'd probably go down a Jetmir list.
Yes.
That dinosaur that makes your historic spells 7/7s in addition.
Yo, I know. That's so good.
I will force myself to play Anger, kill it, and just go ham.
I love that. You actually bringing me to my next topic here. I only have a few questions left for you. It's actually about like tournament structure, right? We've kind of gotten to a point in cEDH where we've figured out a lot of stuff, right? This is less of the Wild West. We're starting to have some consistency between tournaments. But that doesn't mean that we have, the end all be all for structure. Right now, a lot of times what we're seeing is these 75-minute with turns rounds, right? What is your opinion of this? How do you feel like, this tournament ran, this structure runs, and would you have, what would you like to see maybe for healthy structures moving forward? I know you're talking about these 90-minute no turns alternatives.
So I guess this will be my big shout out. Marcus runs a phenomenal tournament.
Oh, 100%.
We were 1 minute late into round 4.
Yeah.
That's insane.
No, yeah, he's the GOAT.
On time. I think number one, you have to allow players the full hour if you're going to go to turns. Saying that the players can't get a lunch because that pod went 45 minutes over, that's fucked. And there's no other nice way to say it.
Yeah, I mean, when some people are, we get an hour long or more, depending on how long our game was, to go get lunch, and then other people you get maybe 5-10 minutes, and you're
maybe stuck there till midnight. So
yeah,
you're at a competitive
exactly.
disadvantage now because you're new.
It's a huge mental.
Yeah.
I'll say, or maybe the TO says, I will order this table, I don't know, McDonald's, and it gets Ubered in. They get to eat on the tournament. Okay, I can handle that. I don't mind if some of my entry fee goes towards the table that literally is not allowed a lunch, because that player is going to get just absolutely bodied in the round of 16 if they make it that far. They're so hungry. They're so tired.
Yeah, it's such a bad headache after that day. I can only imagine if you didn't eat at all.
Well, fuck, Atlas was given 10 minutes to go into the final pod.
Yeah.
That's crazy because it just went, the semifinals in his pod went like 2 hours. And sure, I'm chomping at the bit now. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I just want to play. So I think if you're going to do either the last round, that's when the timer starts, and Eminence sends all the players a text that says 45 minutes starting from now, I think a half hour is healthy enough. Just go. Players need to do their homework and say what's within walking distance or driving distance for 30 minutes, right? Or you just don't allow turns. I guess option C would be you can't go more than 20 minutes. So we either go to turns or time at a specific amount. And if you can't present a win on that player's turn, then it's just done. Slow play's a thing. You can get a tournament warning for it. We're holding this shit at Comprel.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about is like if we pivot to this 90-minute no turns format, how much more important slow play enforcement becomes.
I'll be on your ass about it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really come up a ton like right now. And like I think like when it's like literally 90 minutes and then that's the game, like I think 100% people are going to be way more uptight about it.
Yeah, and I think I'm also weird. I would take it to the extreme and say you have this phase to get through. So if you're in main phase, you don't get an attack phase. You just done. Unless you in main phase can present an infinite combo, like cool, Tivit cracks his time sieve and off they go. Yeah, that's fine. Whatever. You got it.
But no, like end of turn nonsense.
No, it's done because some of these end of turns
that's 20 minutes.
Correct. We went 105, 110 minutes on some of these rounds on Saturday.
100%. That was.
So what's the point of 75 minutes?
Yeah, 100%. Like I had multiple games go 45 minutes into turns.
Well, what about you two? What do you think?
I have a preference for quick play. Like, obviously, you have to allow for decks to do their thing because there's unfairness, too, in limiting the length of the round, right? Because, you know, there's more complicated decks that just naturally require longer turns, and that's not anything about slow play, right? That's just the nature of the deck. So there's, you know, we're not in a perfect world where there's perfect answers, but at the baseline, you do have to respect the player's time. And it's a collective thing, everyone's time, and you need to figure out a solution that gets you to a place where, like, hey, the round starts now, the round ends now, you have an acceptable amount of time between rounds, you know, to mentally get back in place for the next round, like, you know. But yeah, I have the preference for shorter rounds, like what you're describing, where games might go 2 hours. If it's just like that, it sucks. It's not fun, even if you're winning.
Yeah. I mean, final pod was 2 and some change.
Yeah, it's just like exhausting, dude. It's so wearing. I totally agree. I would like to try more 90-minute no turns. This was something I was pitching as well because I think for me, part of it is the amount of draws that come out of this, and which will still happen even in the 90 minutes. Part of it, what I was pitching is I think changing the mentality of like playing for a draw as being a viable means of playing to an out. I think if there was a change in point structure, there's a potential where maybe drawing and losing are in fact the same, treated the same. Then there is no playing for a draw. Like you are exclusively doing what cEDH is supposed to do. Like in mentality, is you are playing to execute your game plan and win. But by incentivizing draws, we are now incentivizing players to play other alternatives and playing towards drawing versus winning the game, which was what we see a lot of times going into turns is just, I need to tank everything into making sure that this person does not win. So I don't know, might not be the right play, might be the right play. But for me, I think it kind of creates a healthier dynamic and also alleviates drawing as much as we are right now.
Until we try it, how can we say it doesn't work?
Yeah, totally. And I think there's space too where like you're having both types of tournament structures, like because not every solution works for everyone. Like, you know, you can have the designated hitter in one league and not in the other league, you know, in baseball.
Well, right now at 75 minutes, I'm going to say it again. Stacks isn't viable. So you just completely cut out a type of list will not be playable in cEDH.
Yeah. So then all of a sudden you're crafting a meta of which is what is actually viable, and that pool gets smaller and smaller.
I think where players can assist with prep too going in, we do a lot of practice at comp with a timer and force us to stay to it. We do 75-minute no turns when we're practicing.
Yeah, better practice. Like hold like your pod accountable.
Also, like knowing your deck list and knowing your lines is a skill issue. Like, it benefits you, not just, the collective, everyone to play faster, be able to play faster.
Correct. And that for me gets into I have no issues with proxies. I'm all about it. But if you're going to proxy up a list, you better be putting 10 to 20 games in with it before you come and sit down at a tournament.
All these fun new arts and stuff.
I just don't want to. If I'm going to lose a game, I want to lose a game to three other players that know exactly what their deck is designed to do, and not, I'm going to put this card on the stack, not knowing how it's going to interact with a majority of the thing. Like, if you sit down and don't know that the Linvala is going to shut off Sisay and Kenrith, and then now your blue farm player just motherfucks the table, well, that's on you, dude.
Oh, yeah. No, I've sat down at so many tables where someone who proxied up a deck wasted everyone's time looking through the deck, figuring out what they should tutor for, found the wrong thing, and then fucked up the game for everyone in the process of doing that. Like, did everything wrong along the way.
You'll love to see it. I think there is, like, we've had this discussion before, the difference between cEDH and tEDH, and not always is tEDH a welcoming environment for new players, and people need reps going into these situations. They are tournaments, and it should be taken like as such. Go ahead.
I think it's also our responsibility for those of us that have put in the time, put in the reps. I don't know, do we start calling out salt more often? Yeah, it's time, and it's there. Some of these tournaments aren't cheap, but don't be so unwelcoming that a new player's not going to want to come back.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we have to grow this format to make it more legitimate. We have to welcome people and teach people. It is not an easy thing to get into by yourself by any means.
Well, and calling a judge should be less stigmatized. Go ahead and call that judge. If you feel anything's wrong and off, they'll sit and they'll hover, and they'll get a vibe for the players that may or may not be the healthiest for the environment. And they'll peek and look over the tables and keep an ear out for it.
Yeah, 100%. I think, like working with judges and stuff is super important too. And just kind of building, I will say, your guys' community is awesome. Like, building a community like that is super welcoming to new people. And you guys bring in a ton of new players into the format as well. Okay, dude, I got one last question for you.
Sure.
I don't know. Maybe you got this right off the bat. Let's see. What do you identify about your gameplay that makes you think that you are a good player? Is it something like, what do you do that makes you, in your opinion, as good as you are? Is it, in the deck building process, is that really where your spark shines? Is it, mulliganing and planning? Obviously, we talked about you keep it 7, you don't give a fuck. Is it like threat assessment, politics? What do you think is that thing that you have?
So I can be talked off a cliff 10 out of 10 times. So not the politics in the slightest. I will sit down at a table and have a smile on my face the whole goddamn time.
That's true.
I just want to play Magic. I feel where I shine is deck building. That I will spend hours on Scryfall and just say haste or enter the battlefield or sacrifice and put in one keyword and a color and give every single list, and I'll start at the back of the list and come forward and try new shit out. So as an example, when I was futzing around with a Staxia Rocco, I put in a card called Rysorian Badger. It's a reserve list card, and it says when it deals combat damage, it doesn't. You exile cards from an opponent's graveyard. You know what that does? That fucks Brain Freeze. But nobody's ever going to see that card. Those are the type of stuff that I like to do. And I'm not upset about losing at my weekly locals. So I'll put together a list, try it out. If it doesn't win a game in 25 matches, I'll put it aside, but I'll give it 25 matches.
Damn, I love that. Yeah.
I love it. Your whole approach is so zen.
the other one, and I'm going to give a big shout out to my buddy Jason. He and I will sit and shoot the shit playing 4 decks. We'll play our main lists and then put up proxied lists across in seats 2 and 4. We'll play them face up, and so we can see all 4 hands and then correct misplays. How would this list play in this situation? And we'll play 3-4 games at a time and just get through a list. Would it win? Would it not? Should you counter here? Should you eat this? Should you react? Is this a good time for an endurance? Should I jam a Thoracle here? Collect Roof isn't the right choice at this point.
That's actually really cool.
No, that's great.
I've never heard that before.
No, that's like red teaming. If you ever played sports.
Nope.
Yeah.
Okay.
Evan's not here, my friend.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. It is literally that. And that has helped my threat assessment out tons. So I might not be a good control player, but I know when to react and start to save my win cons and push for the second one and push for the third one. Also understanding people sitting across from me. Well, I have nothing for this. Great. I'm running a second one out there. But
damn, that's actually some great advice. Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how much I like mulligan decks and stuff like that, but I can only imagine how much more fruitful it is to do what you're talking about, how much more you take away from that.
It allows you to see, like if I'm sitting across from an Urza, I know what a good Urza 7 looks like. If I'm looking across the seat at Tevish Rog or Blue Farm or whatever else, I can also say, let's use Tevish Rog or Rograk as the example. It's either turbo or stacks, yeah? Having played enough fake hands against this list, the first 2 turns are going to tell me what it's going to try and do.
I love that. Yeah. Really working and training the threat assessment.
And maybe that has allowed me not to have to worry about mulliganing. But yeah, don't be afraid to use Scryfall either. It's your best friend.
Dude, I love that. Thank you so much for hopping on, dude. It's been great chatting with you.
No, this is great. Yeah.
You have such a fresh perspective on the game. It's great.
I appreciate it. Yeah, 30 years. We're going to keep doing it.
Next event for you, dog? Where we're going to find you at?
I will be at the regional championship down at Next Level Games.
Yep.
I will be playing Turbo Rocco.
Let's go, dude.
Are you making any changes between Fall Brawl and that tournament?
I realistically think I'm going to make the flip to Pull from Eternity, but the rest of the list will be the same.
Let's go, dude.
It's hot tech. I want to see it.
Alrighty.
All right, my man. Thanks for talking.
Adios.
Have a good one.
Bye.
That was a wonderful interview with Justin. Thank you so much, Justin, for your time and being a supporter. Now, moving on to our interview with Atlas, who actually won the tournament with Kenrith.
Let's go.
Howdy.
Hello, Chris.
How's it going?
Well, happy to be on.
Yeah, dude, thank you so much for being back. Once again, congrats on crushing it. We are interviewing you guys for the Fall Brawl tournament we just all had, of which Atlas here placed number 1 with Kenny.
Yep.
Dude, I love
Finally.
it. Finally. Yeah, you say finally. Has it been a while since you've actually taken a dub?
Not a dub, but I've top 4 the last 2 of them as well. The last 2 tournaments put on by cEDH, and so it feels good to actually finally win one.
Yeah.
How long have you been on Kenrith?
Good question.
2 years.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
you do not bounce around a lot. You bounce around in your list, and that is it.
Yeah, mostly. I toy around with other stuff occasionally. I'm sitting at my desk right now putting together this Angelo the Painter list that I've been tinkering with. But
dude, they're
mostly just for to break up when after a run of tournaments or whatever, I'll break it up by playing something a little different. But
okay,
it's always Kenrith.
I'm gonna hit you up later. We actually need to talk about this Angelo list.
Yeah, because you've played Angelo, Jordan. I've looked at some Angelo lists too. It seems super fun.
Yeah, so I want to build a cEDH Angelo list and make it work. So that's a little side project of mine right now.
Yeah. We'll talk.
Dude, I am actually super pumped about that. Okay, getting distracted. Let's talk about this freaking tournament. One, How do you think it went as like a tournament as a whole? What was the vibe for you?
Oh, I thought it was great. The cEDH tournaments are super well organized, just as a whole. The cEDH group is really put together, and so their events are always a blast, and they pull out a lot of members from the community who don't turn out to other events. So it's always really good to see other players that show up to those events.
Sure, there's a pretty nice like guest pool there. Like the people there are awesome. Like getting to see everybody all at once, and places like from people I just see in like little bits all around. Pretty much everybody shows up for that, which is great. And yeah, Marcus and the guys they organize a really good tournament. I feel like this is the third one. This was the cleanest, most like tight one yet.
Very smooth to play in. I was talking with him a little bit about just like different stuff regarding organizing, and they're always seeking to improve. It's really nice to hear. Yeah,
it's great actually. So that's one of the topics I have tonight. So let's start there.
Yeah, let's just jump into it, right?
Yeah. So I mean, how do you feel about the current, state of tournament organization, right? I feel like, it is obviously, a person-to-person situation of like, depending on who's organizing it, the rule set we go with. But 75 minutes with turns seems to be kind of the new norm. Obviously, there's some outliers and stuff, but what do you think about that? And do you think there is, like ways we can improve promoting, healthier gameplay for tournaments?
That's a really good question. I think that 75 minutes with turns is a very balanced way to do it. It feels really good as a player. Just like doesn't feel like you get like shorted on time by someone else trying to storm off close to the end of the round or something. But on the other side, like it's really an organizer sometimes, because if a match does go super duper long, they're gonna end up overtime, and that can push the schedule back, and it can make it harder for the other players and the TOs, right? So there's also a lot to be said for 90 minutes. I think it's interesting that you said that 75 minutes turn seems to be pretty standard. I've been seeing a lot of like 90 minutes no turns everywhere except for like the Pacific Northwest, actually.
Interesting. I mean, that could just be from, my very limited pool, but I pretty much played tournaments in the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, I mean, that's fair. I just like from looking at like different announcements on like Discords and things like that, they're like, 90 minutes, no turns. Seems like 75 minutes has sort of fallen out of favor a little bit because it makes it easier on the tournament organizers, which I've played a couple of events at 90 minutes as well, and it honestly feels fine. It's like there's a feel bad every now and again where it's like, oh man, we spent so much time deliberating and stopping them, I didn't get my turn where I was going to win. But I mean, at the same time, it avoids jank where it's like I was playing around this past week at the Fall Brawl event, and because we went to turns on the person right before me was turn 0. I was able to kill them because their life total was low enough in order to make sure that I got a second turn, so that I was able to like play around the timer somewhat. So I was able to get 2 turns. So that's like, and then I was able to win because of that extra turn. So it's like they're like positives of 75 minutes where you don't feel slighted, but there's also like negatives where sometimes players are in a certain position to be able to play around the clock like that. So
yeah, it sort of like gets into new strats. Like that's a very like galaxy brain play that you just did there to get an extra turn in turns, which you described as feel good, but maybe for the other players in turns, the other 2 people who only got 1 turn to your 2, it's a feel bad, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I felt a little guilty doing it, but also like it's totally within the rules.
It's within the rules, yeah.
It's such a dope play.
It's not even against like the social code or whatever, right? Because it's like when you die, there were this many turns in the pool when we started, and if someone dies, like there's still that many turns. It's just that's how the game works, and so like it's just, but it does feel a little. I felt guilty doing it, but also I was like, I'm gonna do it anyways.
I mean, the option's available to you. Like it's a tournament. Like it's not in your interest to not do that, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a preference as a player for 90 minutes for 75 plus turns, or?
No, I just like to make sure that I know what it is going into it. I was playing one event a while back, and they didn't announce what the round structure was. And so like coming from, I had been playing a bunch of events that were 75 minutes with turns, and then this one turned out to be 90 minutes no turns, but they didn't announce that. So we got to time in the round, and everyone's like, all right, time in the round, active player, turn 0. But like once you finish your turn, the game is over. And we were all going, wait, what? So
you find like with Kenrith and everything, there actually isn't a big difference for you and your playstyle?
For me and my playstyle, I don't think so, because I am able to. My deck does a really good job of keeping pace with what other decks at the table are trying to do. And so, if other decks are trying to go fast and slide it out of the time limit, I know that their hands are going to be really fragile, their decks are going to be really fragile, and I basically just have to stop them once or get them to stop each other once, and then I will be able to just like do whatever I want, like just play Magic on solo mode for the rest of the round, like in general. Just kind of like how the turbo matchup goes, because I have to play a lot of creature stuff, and so it's hard to interact with.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's interesting hearing you say that, especially as kind of like on the opposite side of things as the turbo player. You know, I am seeing a ton of creatures because they're so hard to interact with and stuff. So I'm constantly facing these kind of threats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely something, and the fact that people have started playing Toxic Deluge and whatnot again is something that I've had to start keeping in mind, like just in my games. It's like, okay, This person's on Grixis or Rakdos. They're almost certainly playing Deluge. Like, I have to make sure that I'm not overextending and getting blown out by a sweeper like that.
Dude, I play Deluge and I play Rolling Earthquake. Get wrecked. Oh, I love Rolling Earthquaking people. They just never see
the
it.
Card is really, really good.
It's super funny. Yeah, so like in this tournament, like what did you see? Is it pretty much like, you know, par for the course what you expected? Were there like surprises, any hot new tech? What did you see?
It was a lot. So the past two cEDH events that I played in, it was a lot stacksier. We were seeing a lot more like rule of laws. We were seeing a lot of just different like oof style effects. And I think the entire event I ran into two deafening silences and I ran into one null rod. Two of those, the rod and the deafening silence, were in my finals game. And so there was almost no stacks compared to previous events that I've played in the Pacific Northwest. It was a lot more stacks heavy, like even like rule of law, a lot more oof. People were playing things like Curse Totem, which I know that one or two of the decks happened to be on Saturday. I just didn't run into them in bracket.
So you're saying you just saw a lot less stacks though?
It could have just been me like dodging it, but at the same time, yeah, I saw a lot less stacks.
What did you see? A lot of just the mid range, or
tons of mid range. Everything was a grind card. Like basically, I'm gonna put this in play and I'm gonna let it accumulate value. And there was so much Tymna, so much Mystic Remora. I'm trying to think if I saw any spicy ones. It was a lot of Rhystic Study, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Saw 2 or 3 One Rings, I think.
Yeah, can I ask about that? Because I have a card choice question on your list.
Absolutely.
Where you're playing Stunt Double over Phyrexian Metamorph. I assume that's the one for one there.
Go off.
Yeah. And I know you had an interesting play involving the Stunt Double, so I do want to delve in on that.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so I have 2 cards that I've come to consider the truth of cEDH as far as like from a control player's perspective, and they are Cloud Shift, which I was happy to go off on, but to address your question, Stunt Double. It's just clone, but they added flash to it, so it's strictly better.
Mm-hmm. And the reason I got off on this tangent too is because you mentioned the One Ring, and I think a lot of lists will play Phyrexian Metamorph for the One Ring reach,
copying the artifact.
Yeah.
So strong, especially when you can like Eldritch into it and then have it enter the battlefield as a copy of the ring anyways. It's pretty busted. But as a control player, my whole philosophy is draw go. And so I like literally a port from like Modern and Legacy where I'm just wanting to like throw a land down on my turn, do anything that I have to do on my turn, and then pass to you and play super reactively. Because one of the things that I have discovered over the past like 3 years since I started just like playing cEDH pretty intently in general, is that silence is like one of the best effects in the game. And the silence effect occurs naturally when all players are out of interaction. And it has also occurred to me...
That is true. That is a facet of it, yeah.
Yeah, that is... When all players are F6, silence just occurs. And so it occurred to me as a thought one day where I was like, well, if silence is a card that I'm never attempting a win without anyways, basically, why how can I get more silence effects? I don't want to play like 3 fairy because I think that card is really bad. And I know that it's not, but I hate playing it as a player who wants to say play my card and pass. I never want to pass to another opponent and give them the option to do something where the other 2 players can't interact with them. And so my thought was, well, when all players are out of interaction, silence occurs. How do you figure out if all players are out of interaction? Well, when somebody else puts a win on the stack and everyone's like, yeah, I can't do anything. And so when I was like working through that, and that's when I decided that all of my win conditions needed to be instant speed. And so because of that, I have a couple of different options to do with stunt double. Just because it has flash, like I can copy other people's Storacles, which is a card I don't normally play, but like I can copy a Dockside Extortionist, then go into my turn with a bunch of mana. So there's just a bunch of different options there with stunt double because it has flash, and because I'm using other people's cards, like they're making an investment on their turn, getting stopped, and then passing. Someone else puts a win on the stack, and then I can win over the top of that win after everyone has confirmed their F6, basically.
No, that's rad strategy. Just we've I think in the podcast part of the episode, we talked a little bit about how timing is so important in tournament EDH. Like, the wins are going to come, figuring out the math on timing really a lot of the time.
Every deck
Absolutely.
should be able to win pretty much, if you're just goldfishing, you should be able to win every single time. That's why we build and play these decks, so it is. And now also because of that, we also build these decks to stop other people from winning all of the time. I think I love hearing this philosophy because it's very unique, but it's also very real. It's just like this one window is a guaranteed slot to win. It just happens to be right before the other person wins.
Yep, yeah. They put their Thoracle trigger on the stack with consult. And it's like everyone's going to use all their counter spells to stop the consult. Which, if it gets countered, great. You have more time if you don't think it's right. And if it doesn't get countered, then you have a chance to shoot for it over the top. And if you fail due to something, like you were going to lose anyways. So it's not even that much of a feels bad, in my opinion.
Love that. Yeah.
Shoot your shot. Yeah, that is just awesome. I love it. This deck is just super crispy, super clean.
I got I think, less interesting card choice question. Why Slaughter Pact over Deadly Rollick?
Okay, so you think that's less interesting, but I promise you, it's actually really good. So a long time ago, I was playing Path to Exile as a second removal effect, right? And it's 1 mana, it's really efficient, punches 4 and 5 color decks, but like it doesn't. Outside of like exiling a creature for 1 white and it gets hit by mental misstep, it's not realistically all that good. If you hit something in a low color deck, they get a basic. So it, like if you're hitting their commander in Godo, it effectively is like, oh, well, did you top deck a land? I guess there's no command tax. So I was looking at different options and I was talking with some other players. And so Devin, who is a 5-color Sisay player from Portland, they're very, very good at the game. And I was asking them for opinions on like removal spell choices because I was struggling a little bit with Drannith Magistrate at the time, which is something that I've come to have to worry about a lot less since then. But they said play either Deadly Rollick or Slaughter Pact. And between the two, I was looking at them, and Deadly Rollick has 2 main like fallacies when I was looking at it for my list. One is that it's a 4 mana removal spell if your commander's not out, and my commander costs 5 mana, so it's not always out. It's not out early, and so it's not an early removal spell, which can be problematic. And the second one was that you can't tutor it off Spellseeker, and so I decided that Slaughter Pact was going to be a little bit more flexible for what I needed. It's free when I need it to be free. You can pay for it on turn 1 off a Dark Ritual. Like, there were a couple of things about it where I was like, okay, like niche scenarios, it's fine. But as I was developing the deck and figuring out my primary combo lines, I came across what I have since like dedicated my primary combo line is the Eternal Witness combo with Displacer Kitten. There are like 3 or 4 different permutations of cards that you can go infinite with, but one of them is Slaughter Pact, where you cast Slaughter Pact for 0, targeting Eternal Witness. This triggers Displacer Kitten, flickers your Eternal Witness, which means that your pact is going to fizzle because there's no legal target once it gets back to that as the topmost object on the stack. So you'll never have to pay for your pact. But it also allows you to get a new ETB trigger on Witness to pick something up. So with just a Dark Ritual or a couple of other different cards, you can cast the Slaughter Pact targeting the Eternal Witness, flicker it, and then pick up the Dark Ritual. And now your pact goes to the yard, tap a black, cast the Dark Ritual, flicker the Witness, pick up the Slaughter Pact, and now you can use Dark Ritual's 3 mana to pay for its 1 casting cost and generate infinite black by paying for itself, because your other spell is free. So it's kind of like a secondary Cloud Shift in that regard.
That's very sick tech. Yeah, are you finding you're losing anything by the it has to be a non-black creature? That doesn't come up that often, right? Because any commander that would have black it's actually in their color identity a lot of the time, rather than
Yeah. The 3 cards that I think come up the most are Tymna, which honestly just like make a bigger board, which my deck excels at, and I can pump other people's creatures. I play Forbidden Orchard to tech against Tymna, so that doesn't come up as much. Gilded Drake Tymna does a lot too. But the main 2 are Opposition Agent, which hurts sometimes, but I have a lot of other removal spells for. And then also the biggest one really is Dothy Voidwalker, just because my deck does use the graveyard a lot.
For sure, yeah.
Dothy can be problematic. Thankfully, it's only 2 toughness, and I have a lot of other removal spells that hit it. So it's not the worst thing in the world, but it comes up occasionally where I'm like, damn, I'm sitting on the Slaughter Pact and I can't hit this thing that I really want removed. But it does hit the biggest problem creature for me. 2 of them are Linvala, Keeper of Silence, and Elishnorn, Mother of Machines, which are both white, and so Slaughter Pact hits those. So it's like I'll take that.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Yeah. Is there a reason you're not playing Dothy yourself in this list?
Gilded Drake's a really good card.
Okay.
And so is Opposition Agent.
Fair enough.
I mean, you've told me that this is pretty much Gilded Drake control.
Yes.
Is your deck.
It kind of if you're playing a board, my goal is to make your board my board, more or less. There's a lot of tech you can do to abuse Gilded Drake, but other people play clones as well. And so I didn't want them cloning a Dothy or draking a Dothy or like opping me on Neoform for 2 and taking Dothy, because my deck there are certain games, certain points where my deck is really vulnerable to graveyard hate. So I didn't want other people having the option to play a Dothy if they weren't already playing one, or like to be able to play a second copy of Dothy.
Checks out to me. All right, I have a third card choice question.
Let's go.
And
Absolutely.
This is not about a 1-for-1. This is about how you're playing the card. I'm going to assume that this is the first big tournament where you're playing Talion the Kindly Lord.
I believe it is. I think it is. I think the last one I was competing in, Talion was like 1 week away from release.
Got it.
Yes.
So my question is, what are you naming when you're playing it, and what are you seeing your opponent's name?
That's a great question. Every time I see someone else play that card, it names 2. I think I've seen someone else name 1 or 3. I don't know. It happened one time. Somebody was like, I'm not going to name 2. I'm naming this number. And I was like, wow, that's really weird. Everyone always names 2. Which I think, so before Talion even got released, I fell in love with the design of the card, like just the artwork, all of it. And so I ran a bunch of like analysis about the numbers that were popping up in cEDH, and we can call them magic numbers. But
yeah, I think you had this conversation in our Discord.
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah.
I think I did. It's like, so 2 is the statistically the most prominent number across the board. Or sorry, not 2. 1 is. 1 is the most prominent number across the board. Except in very specific decks like Crick. And the reason for that is that there's a lot of interactive spells at 1. A lot of tutors at 1. The problem with naming 1 as like the static choice is that most of the developmental spells in the game, and I found this after talking to some people and like re-reviewing like the analysis that I'd done. So on second look, all of the developmental spells fall on 2, whereas most of the interactive spells and tutors fall on 1. So if I basically boiled it down into a single philosophy of, if you're playing Talion into a stalled board state, 2 is the best one to pick, because you'll draw the most cards. You'll probably draw 3 to 4 cards on average per cycle. That said, there are certain cases, such as if you're fighting like a pod of green decks, or if you're fighting you're not in a stalled board and everything is about to become heavily interactive and reactive, where you'd want to name 1, because Offer, Swan Song, Swords, like all of these interactive spells get hit by 1, as well as a couple of like a fair number of developmental creatures, right? So, so that will tend to draw you like a huge burst of cards within a single cycle, which can be super advantageous as well. Like obviously, if you play a Ristic Study, draw 15 cards and untap, you're probably going to win. This is kind of the same thing with Talion. You play Italian on one because you just feel that shit's about to hit the fan, and you're going to untap with like 10 plus cards. With the way that I've been playing the card, I've been setting it to 2 mostly because my deck excels in stalled board states, and so a lot of times 2 is just correct. But like in my finals game this past weekend, the card Talion actually won me the game because I was in a pod of 2 green decks. I was playing against Yeva, which is mono green, and then Rocco, which is, for all intents and purposes, it's a green deck. You play a lot of dorks. Your commander in the command zone is a 3/1. And then the other deck was 5-color Sisay, so their tutors, a lot of their cards like Dockside that are developmental will also still get hit by 1. So I named 1, and the Rocco player, my friend Justin, whose cards were holding down the entire board, he had us locked out on stacks, and he had a combo on board ready to roll at a moment's notice. He just started casting like his 1-cost cards into Talion. Like he's like, oh, the card draw doesn't really matter. He was really tired, but he was thinking the card draw doesn't really matter. It's like, I'm gonna put my Owl Shepherd in play. I'm gonna put my Esper Sentinel in play. I'm gonna get back in this game. And he took himself from like 8 to 1 life in a single turn. And then he was like, oh, what's my life total? 1? I guess I have to stop. But I had a Deathrite Shaman on board. So at that point, like he was just kind of
my God.
At my mercy, right? So Talion is what won me the game. It put him in Deathrite Shaman range because otherwise we were going to be there for a minute.
Talion's lose 2 for me is like the most slept on part of it. Like it is an amazing draw engine, rivals Ristic Study, probably better. But the lose 2 on your own ad nause is awful. I think on my game 4 in this tournament, the Tivit player cloned Talion, naming 1 when the first one was named on 2. And I had to cast like 3 spells to interact that turn, and I lost like 12 life. And at that point, you're just like not ad nausing anymore.
I think too,
yeah.
in EDH, you're walking around with your chest out because you're starting with 40 life, and a lot of the like mentality is that life doesn't matter, but that incremental life loss is it adds up.
It adds up so quickly. And I mean, he's a 3/4 flyer to boot. Like, I mean, that's relevant too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I play 5/5 in my command zone, and sometimes that's the only text on the card is 5/5. And like,
it wins a lot of matchups.
Yeah, it does. I think 2 or 3 of my games came down to I just resolved 2 or 3 big creatures and just started hitting people and beat them to death with combat damage. It's really like, I think that's a great point, Chris, about the like people get really cocky at 40 life. Because I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure I would play Talion, at least in my current list, if it didn't have the lose 2 life clause. That is what really drew me to it. It's like the draw card is really good, but the fact that it punishes your opponents really hard for taking an action and speeds you up, I think that's what really pushes it over the edge. That's the same reason that I play just raw Niv Mizzet in my list, is because anytime I draw a card, which my deck does a lot, I get to shoot anything on the board for 1. So sometimes it's board control, and sometimes like players are just slinging spells, and I'm just shooting them in the face so that their ad nause gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, I mean, Kenrith is the commander for that, but I feel like you're a player that does not waste rules text. Like you're playing every word on that card you're going to play, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I noticed you're off Mayhem Devil, brother.
Yes, that was an interesting choice that I made right before 2 weeks before cEDH, so I didn't really have a lot of time to test it, but I've been liking it a lot. So Mayhem Devil it's like a pseudo stacks piece. It punishes people for cracking treasures by deleting their board. It punishes people for doing certain infinite loops by shooting them for lethal. But it wasn't super amazing. It doesn't pitch to any force or anything like that. It's hard to cast. It's only a 3/3. There was just a lot of like, this card is really good, but this card is really mid. And it boiled down to the same evaluation that caused me to cut Thoracle years ago, which was that, when was the last time I actually won a game with this card? And I was evaluating it, and I was saying, I think the last time I won a game with this card was maybe like 4 or 5 months ago. I'm never tutoring for it. I have since then pitched it to Chrome Mox at least 4 times that I can think of. And so I was like, okay, well, this is the next card I can cut, which is great because I was looking to add Manglehorn in anyways. And so it was a 3-cost out for a 3-cost in. Manglehorn pitches to Endurance. And Manglehorn is a much better stacks piece than Manglehorn or than Mayhem Devil is, because Treasures entering tapped, Fast Mana entering tapped, just like hoses players' entire turns. Like if you're playing Adnaz, I mean, Jordan, you can corroborate, but you probably can't try and win until that Manglehorn is dead.
I hate seeing a Manglehorn at the table, honestly. And also, I know your deck happens to love ETBs on creatures. So
I do. So that was another upside.
No, that's for sure.
was
I feel
another
that.
upside.
I feel that. Super easy to cast too. It and asymmetrical stacks pieces in mid-range lists like this. I think it's just, it's meta these days, I think.
My dockside parasites off other people's docksides, and it's like to some extent it's easier to keep around than an oof, where people are like, kill collector oof, I want to use my soul ring. People are like, well, I'll wait a turn and then my soul ring will be like the slower decks.
People
like, I'll wait a turn and keep it around.
Yeah, they accept the L, they move on. They're not like, this is what my removal goes to.
Yes, yeah, they're not deleting it the same way they're like pathing an oof or something like that.
Yeah, I see that. No, I mean, I was sad to see the Mayhem Devil gone. I loved that card in the list, but when I hear you say it like that, I mean, it makes sense for sure.
Yep. Yes, it was I've really been liking it. It's been doing a lot of work.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, list is looking great, and I know you're a tuner of the deck all the time. So post tournament, what are your thoughts? Like, I know you're looking at a few tournaments coming up here. Are you going to be making any updates?
Oh, that is the question, isn't it?
I always like to know.
There's nothing I'm really looking at right now. Nothing from Doctor Who or any of the other sets has really been standing out to me as like noteworthy includes yet. So I'm not really speculating on any of the upcoming cards. I might be evaluating whether or not to go onto Blind Obedience in a slot, just more stacksy, because since no one else is playing stacks, I feel like it's becoming a lot stronger right now. Just like you play a stacks piece, it hoses everyone, and now they're all just set super far back while you're allowed to advance your tempo.
I mean, for you, Blind Obedience, I feel the interesting part might be the what is that ability?
The extort.
The extort, because you're talking about the incidental life loss off Niv Mizzet and Talion. Well, that's another card that does the same thing while furthering your game plan.
Yeah, it's a definite consideration, especially now that I'm playing Enlightened Tutor. Like it just gets really easy to fetch up. So that's a consideration. The other card that I'm still evaluating right now, because I didn't see it at all over the weekend, was Oko, Thief of Crowns. It's been phenomenal in practice games where it deletes every single card that my deck doesn't want to see. Sometimes it sticks around for like an entire game, but I've also like run into games where it's like I play it and it's literally just like a Vindicate, which feels mid. So
I mean that's reasonable. I had an experience this weekend that is keeping me hot on Oko for a while, in that it seems to be one of the very few pieces of removal that actually deals with the one ring, which I do like.
Yes, that's a huge selling point for it.
But I mean, if I do just say 3 mana is Vindicate, and that's a lot of time is not good enough.
At least it pitches to both forces and endurance.
True. I like card evaluation that way.
I mean, this list looks super tight. Like for you, like on a list where the 99 looks pretty solved, like what is the evaluation you're making for something to have to come out like that? Like for Oko not to be good enough, I guess.
That it really just comes down to like, does this card do more than the other card more times? That's literally all it is at that point, because at this point I know the philosophy of the deck. I know what I want it to do. I know which cards behave well and which cards behave poorly. Like Fire Covenant was in there for a minute and it performs fantastically, but my question was, does Oko perform better in more situations? And so far, because that was the swap for those two, was Fire Covenant out, Oko in. And so far the answer has been yes, just because it's easier to pitch. It goes under a Chrome Mox better. It taps for colors that I actually care about compared to black and red. And it answers the One Ring, Curse Totem, and Grafdigger's Cage on turns I need them answered, whereas the Fire Covenant only answers like Elishnorn or Linvala or like creature-based stacks. So
fair enough.
Very cool. I think I only have about maybe 1 or 2 more questions left for you.
Yeah.
one, where do you think the meta is going, and like kind of where are we looking right now? It seems like we're talking about stacks being kind of less prevalent when we were in a stacks meta for quite a while, it felt like. And what is your answer to that? What is your preparation for that, knowing that?
Oof. My guess is, and this is a rough speculation, but my guess is that the meta is going to be shifting faster and faster, as power creep always causes metas to. But it's going to be shifting faster and faster, shifting towards faster and faster decks that have backup plans. So, like, we've seen a lot of results with Tivit, with Kinnan, with things like that. I think those style of decks are going to be the things to beat going forwards, where they do have like a 1-card combo in the command zone, or they have a super fast game plan in the form of like Ad Nauseam or something in like Tivit, Historical, things like that. But if that doesn't work, they can very easily fall back and start mid-ranging. I'm going to be honest, I think the fall of Blue Farm as the quote-unquote best deck it's maybe a hot take, but I think it's pretty inevitable at this point, just because the commanders don't do enough, like, which is wild to say, but just because like your commander packs the best combos and everything into a draw engine card shell, I don't think that's going to be enough within the next year or so going forwards to just flat out designate you as the best deck. Because things like Tivit can basically do everything that Blue Farm does, except it can't breach, but it gets to play much better stacks pieces that don't affect it, like Grafdigger's Cage and Curse Totem. Still gets to play Containment Priest and crazy hosers like that. And it also has a 1-card combo with the commander. So even though it's a little more expensive to cast, it's not hard to cast because Jewel Lotus is a card and there are 3 colorless pips on there. It's hard to remove, and it's got that easy combo. Things like Kinnan I think are also going to be moving up because for similar reasons. Like, comes out quickly, get to abuse a lot of the acceleration like Mox Amber and things like that, Fierce Guardianship, and then it ramps you into big spells really quickly. You have a 1-card combo with Basalt Monolith, and then if for whatever reason that fails, you can always just pivot into whatever the next best Simic combo, which is probably at this point just Hullbreaker Horror, but make infinite mana that way and just flip like really large creatures that are going to keep you alive and in the game in the meanwhile. So I think decks like that are really where the meta is going to start to look.
Very cool. And I know you're not going to change your commanders. So if that is what starts, if that's what we start seeing, right? So like, what do you do to prepare for that? Is this list as is, like, Loaded for Bear, able to take that down?
No. Oof. I mean, there'll definitely need to be some changes, because Tivit is definitely a list that I can struggle with. Stunt Double is a sweet tech piece against Tivit though, because I can make a bigger Tivit.
Yes.
So, and it abuses the ward trigger and everything. So, I think that it's a strong start to fighting those decks, but if it really does start to shift that way, I might need to adjust my strategy away from more Stormy to less Reanimator or something. I need to find a way to play pieces that will hose those decks specifically. So maybe it means that I have to figure out a way to play Containment Priest in a way that doesn't hose my entire strategy, or like I need to pivot to more artifact hate. So maybe I go off Dockside Loops entirely, crazy thought, and just start playing Collector Oof in the main, like things like that.
Very cool.
I just have to play whatever hoses them harder.
Put in Silver Bullets and then carving out the path in your deck to make room for it, essentially, more than just a single slot.
Yep.
Very cool. Excited to see where the meta goes.
Thank you. I'm really excited, and we have a couple events coming up here. I think you folks are supposed to be commentating one of the ones I'll be playing at here in the next couple weeks too.
Oh my God, that was the most solid plug I've ever heard. Yes, 100%. We are going to be at the next Gabby's tournament. What are we calling this tournament?
The Olympic Commander Challenger Series.
Yes, so we are working on the streaming setup right now, and our goal is to capture, ideally live and stream and commentate, and also have some recorded video after the fact with commentary. So it'll be very cool. This is, I mean, the meta there, like just the player base at Gabby's is just awesome. One, everybody's super nice, but everybody is an incredible player too. So being able to actually get some coverage of it, I'm very excited about. And
Yeah,
not having to play against you guys and just watch you guys play really well also sounds great.
I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Any other tournaments on your agenda coming up here?
Just the regional championships for the Pacific Northwest area. PDX has done us the great service of organizing. They organized a circuit earlier this year. So a bunch of players were able to qualify for free entry to this event. But it's going to be 100 players, 100+ players.
Yeah.
In Graham, Washington. So one of the biggest ones that we've seen in this area in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Topher for organizing a lot of that in the PDX server. And also, I think we are going to be there, so you can kick our asses if we come across you.
I'll look forward to it.
Yeah, 100%. I do too. I have one last question for you, my guy.
Yes.
Out of all the different parts and aspects of this game, of which there are many, where do you find that your spark is that actually helps you be as good of a player as you are? What do you think that makes you uniquely, or what do you think you are uniquely good at that makes you good at this game? Rather, some people are the best deck builders, or some people know how to take a good mulligan because they can threat assess on the fly. Politics. Where do you see yourself?
Oh, that is a great question. I don't know that I'm particularly excel in any one area. I don't want to brag. I feel like I'm just okay.
Now's your time to brag. You literally
invitation to brag.
You literally got the top 4 in the last 2, and you just won this most recent tournament. So brag away. Let's hear it.
I don't know. I feel like I'm very solid at most of the core components. If I had to pick one particular strength, it would probably be politicking. I think that's a really important characteristic for a control player in a 4-player format. Just not even make this deal, make that deal type politics, but just making sure everyone understands what the table's looking like and guiding people to correctly, because I refuse to lie to people, but just guiding their perceptions of this is the biggest threat, and while I'm scaling up and I may be the next biggest threat, but I'm not going to mention that part.
Mm-hmm. No, there's as much incentive, right, to get something that you want as there is to prevent a bad play from happening. That's going to prevent the things from playing out correctly.
Yes, absolutely. But I would say probably that. But then aside from that, I'm just there to have fun. So as long as the game's fun, as long as the opponents are good, am I going to go away sad if I lose? Yes. But I'm just there to fight strong opponents and have a really good time.
Dude, I love that. Well, thank you so much for hopping on the pod, dude. It's been great chatting and getting to ask you some questions.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to be on again.
Yeah,
Hope
and
speak with you guys soon.
Yeah, hopefully we get to cover some of your gameplay coming up at Gabby's.
Hopefully.
All right, my guy. Thank you for hopping on. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah, have a great one.
All right,
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
See ya.
We're so thankful to have you on the show, and we're so thankful to have Justin on the show as well. This was wonderful. I think we should be doing this more often.
Yeah, let us know if you guys made it through this 2-week episode interview thing. If you like this format, I really enjoyed doing it. I actually thought it was great, kind of picking these guys' brain, different kind of content for us, and I think we kind of learned a lot.
Yeah, if there's a player in the local community that you really are into their gameplay and you want to know more from them, maybe speak up in the Discord and we'll reach out and see what we can do.
We're doing these calls on Discord, dude. It doesn't have to be local. We can call anybody.
Yeah, that's honestly how we got Tyler on the show. Was John, who's one of our patrons, came forward and was just like, you need this dude on the show. He's so funny.
He's hilarious.
And smart.
Yeah. Yeah, if you got anybody you want to get an interview.
And handsome.
We will talk to him.
Of course. Just
as long as they're
full package.
Yep.
Tyler's the full package for sure.
And if you do like this type of content and you want to let us know, if you're not already a part of the Discord server, which you can find a link in the description below, you can find us on YouTube where you can subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Leave a comment down below letting us know if you like this style of content. It's going to, and we love to interact, so let's have that conversation. You can also find us on all major podcasting platforms and on our Discord server. Again, description, look there. And you can also
just keep rolling, dog.
Keep rolling, yeah.
You're doing great.
It's perfect.
I'm rolling.
Include all this too.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode and always being a supporter of the show.
You guys rock.
Bye.
We love you, Pepperheads. Good night.